In this video, we're going to be looking at negative numbers. That's following on last time from when we were looking at how we write numbers using place value. Specifically, we were looking at writing positive numbers. As I say, in this video, we're going to look at negative numbers. So it's going to be a little bit different to last time, but it's quite similar. So I'm sure you'll do great. Now, in this video, we're going to look at how we describe negative and positive numbers. And also explain these numbers in context. And then, just like with place value, we're going to look at some examples of how we actually write negative numbers. Okay, so one example of where you might have seen negative numbers before is in temperature. Specifically with these colder temperatures where we have connotations or pictures of someone shivering, the snow, the igloo. These are all linked to negative temperatures. So let's have a look. If you have someone shivering, someone in this cold, that might be linked to a temperature that is negative on a thermometer, maybe -5, like we've got here. And this -5 is written as a 5 with a minus sign in front of it. So negative temperatures are cold. We'd say we are below 0 because on the thermometer we have a -5 down here, and that is below the 0. That's different to these warmer temperatures where the temperature would be somewhere up here, maybe 20 or 25. These temperatures would be above 0 because all of the numbers up here are above the 0 down here. And so this is an example of positive numbers and negative numbers. So positive numbers are above 0 and negative numbers are below 0. And this is really useful because if we could describe positive and negative numbers, that just helps us describe the world a bit more easily. And we'll also see this when looking at deep sea diving underwater. So if you imagine a marine biologist who's wanting to go on an exploration underwater to learn about the sea creatures and the plants that live down there. They might start at sea level, just on the top of the water, and then swim downwards, and then get lower and lower, further below 0, below the sea level. And we can measure this. We can measure this as the height above seawater. So in meters, they might start exactly at sea level, which we'd call 0, and then they'd swim downwards, getting to -5 meters, or -5 meters above sea level, so that'd be 5 below, and then go further down and further down, seeing more and more creatures. And this is really useful because it enables us to measure and track the location. So maybe we might find more of these goldfish at -10 meters and octopus at -5 meters. And it just helps us keep track of the world. And so once again, looking at our meter number line here, we have this number line along the side, we see that the negative numbers go down below 0 and the positive numbers are above 0. So they're sort of opposites in a sense. They both sort of have the same appearance. It's 5, 5, 10, 10, and so on. But above 0 is positive, below 0 is negative. Okay. So let's have a look at some questions. I'll have a go at the first one with you and then leave you to pause the video for the next two. So, if the temperature is minus 8 degrees Celsius, what does the negative sign tell us? Well, if we look back to our temperature example, we can see that sort of positive numbers, positive temperatures are above 0, and the negative sign is below 0. So that must mean that the temperature of minus 8 is below 0. So the answer would be C. I'll leave you now to pause the video and have a go at the remaining two questions. Okay. So for this next question, which height above sea level would you expect to find a fish? Well, we always find fish below the water, below sea level. And so that means that we're going to have a below 0 height, so a negative height. And this number here is positive because there's no negative sign. And this number here is positive. So that must mean we'd expect to find a fish at minus 8 meters or negative 8 meters. Okay, so we have one last question here, which is what numbers would go in the empty boxes on the number line below? Well, this first box here, this first box should be a doddle because this just links back to the counting, the place value that we've all done before. So it's just what number comes between 1 and 3. That would be 2. Things start to get a bit more complicated though for this box here. This box is sort of on the opposite side to these positive numbers. So these are the positives. So it's the opposite side of 0 to the positives. So it would be a negative number. So that means there'll be a negative sign. And then if we look, it's between 2 or minus 2 and minus 4. So the number that would go there would be between minus 2 and minus 4, which is minus 3. Did a great job. Okay, nice work. So, to sum up, in this video, we've looked at positive numbers, which are the numbers that count upwards above 0. And we've looked at negative numbers, which count downwards or below 0. And we've seen that positive, negative numbers are opposites. Also, we've seen that negative numbers show up everywhere. You know, we've seen they've shown up in temperatures and underwater. So negative numbers are really useful, just in the same way that positive numbers are useful for describing things in the world around us.